What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. A little bit late with this one, but Saturday night, the Knicks played the Washington Wizards. The Wizards hosted this game, and they lost in overtime to the Knicks 136 to 132. And Jalen Brunson had a hell of a game, while Karl-Anthony Towns had 30 points and 14 rebounds on 13 of 19 shooting. Jalen Brunson scored a career-high 55 points. Matter of fact, no, I take that back. That's not his career high, is it? No, I take that back. Didn't he have a 61-point game? Yeah, I take that back. That's not his career high. Season high. 55 points, 18 of 31 shooting, 3 of 11 from downtown, 16 of 17 from the free throw line. He also had 9 assists in this contest. Matter of fact, Jalen Brunson scored 42 of those 55 points in the second half, including overtime in this game. And, you know, one of the things that I've noticed is that this game has received, at least from what I can tell, very little buzz. Very little buzz. And, you know, I think it comes from a couple of reasons. Number one, he did it against the Wizards, who are the absolute worst team in the NBA, 5-24 in the year. Matter of fact, not only are the Wizards, I believe, the worst team in the NBA, this is perhaps the worst Wizards team in the history of the Wizards/Bullets franchise. And this franchise goes all the way back to, I believe, the early 1960s, maybe in the late 50s, when they used to be called the Chicago, what were they called? The Chicago Packers or the Chicago Zephyrs, or I forgot which one they were first. But anyway, they suck. And man, how many? Matter of fact, I've said it before. How many players have scored 50 against them? I mean, this latest post-Bradley Beal incarnation of the Wizards. Like, how many, you know what I'm saying? How many players have scored 50 against this team? Joel Embiid has scored 50. Anthony Davis has scored 50. Giannis has scored 50 against them. You know, I think a couple years ago, Ramon James scored 50 against them. Although Bill might have been with them at that point still. Jalen Brunson now scored 50 against him. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, earlier this year, Victor Wembanyama scored 50 against them. You know, they suck, man. That's the team. That's the team right there. If you want to get into a rhythm, if you're a player struggling, or if you want to pad your stats, the Wizards is the team to do it against. That's the team that your favorite player is going to get a bit, more than likely to have a big night against them. But anyway, nobody really cares, though. Nobody really seems to care. And it has a lot to do with what I just said. It has a lot to also do with the fact that the NBA doesn't promote its product work very well. You know what I mean? And it doesn't make any sense because the Knicks are one of the largest markets in the NBA. So it's not a real good excuse as to why the average NBA fan doesn't really know too much about this Knicks team. Okay? They're 22-10, so they're not a bad team record-wise, right? They had that big trade that involved Karl-Anthony Towns, so there should be more buzz about them. I mean, they're Knicks, for Christ's sake. They should have more buzz about them. Now, Jalen Brunson had a lot of buzz last year because he has this huge season last year, almost MVP worth. I think he was fifth in MVP voting in the 2023-24 season, averaging 29 points per game, which I think is the. I think about this. I believe it's the third best scoring season in the history of the Knicks franchise, behind Bernard King, and I believe what's his face? What's the guard that played in the '60s? Oh boy, what was the guy named, man? He's still alive. Oh man, what is his name? Let's see if I can figure it out. Richie Richie Guerin. I know it was something like that. Yeah. Yeah, Richie Guerin. You know what I'm saying? So he had a lot of buzz last year, but to me it's not the same buzz, man. Matter of fact, there's not a lot of talk that I'm noticing about many Eastern Conference teams. It's like the focus has been more on the Western Conference. Now I know the glut of talent has been focused a little bit more on the West, but there are some great Eastern Conference teams. Like I don't get it. Like the Boston Celtics, even though they've been on a little bit of a little bit of a losing streak lately, they're the defending NBA champions. I mean, let me ask you guys a question. When have you ever seen? This is how terrible Adam Silver is as a commissioner. When have you ever seen in so many successive seasons defending NBA champions get this least amount of respect? Like when I was growing up, I hate to keep always saying when I was growing up, but when I was growing up, defending NBA champion teams got coverage. Okay. Um, when I first started watching the NBA, now I didn't really start watching the NBA until 1990, but I remember in the 80s, glancing at CBS Sports, they would talk about the Lakers, you know what I'm saying, the defending champs, or uh, when the Celtics won the title in '86, I was a little bit too young. But I remember them talking about the Lakers. I remember them talking about the Pistons, the Bulls, obviously. But even with the Rockets, when they went back to back, they were the champs. They got coverage. They got that respect. You always heard them being talked about. Maybe not as much as other teams, but they got talked about. And the media gave them, and media members gave them the respect their champion deserved. When the Spurs won their championship, they weren't talked about a lot because they were a small market, but they got the respect that they deserved. And Tim Duncan, as a consequence of that, got a lot more coverage individually. They would talk about him at the very least, and they would mention the Spurs. Yeah, they didn't talk about much as the big market teams, not going to front and cap like they did, but they talked about them more. It's like, man, in this era, the only championship team I really remember getting a lot of coverage over the last 10 years have been whatever team LeBron James playing on, if they happen to win the title the year before, or the Warriors. The Raptors got respect for like 1 week. The Bucks got respect for 2 days. The Nuggets got respect for like 2 or 3 days. Even when the Warriors won championship a couple of years ago, they didn't get the buzz that I thought they would get, man. Even the Celtics, one of those storied franchises. I mean, they talk about Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, but y'all know what the deal is. But yeah, man, Jalen Brunson had one of the great games of this season, and not too many people know about it or do they care. And that's the sorry state of the NBA that we're in. It also tells you, too, how a 55-point game is not what it once was. It's not what it once was, ladies and gentlemen. I remember when Tracy Murray, ironically, or coincidentally, I should say, was playing with the Wizards then. I think, matter of fact, that was the first season that they were the Wizards, 97, 98. And he had a 50-point game that season. In fact, I think there were only 3 50-point games that year. He had 50. I forget who he did it against. Shaq had a 50-point game that year. I think he did against the Nets. And Karl Malone had 56 against the Warriors, right? But anyway, I remember when Jamal Murray had Tracy Murray. When Tracy Murray dropped 50, man, everybody was talking about that. That was the talk of the sports world. Because 50 points was an remarkable accomplishment. Because back in those days, if you averaged 20 points a game, you were cold. If you averaged 20, like I distinctly remember when we were talking sports, or if you listen to sports radio, sports talk, in the 90s, especially the late 90s and the 2000s, when it became harder to score. If you were a 20-point per game scorer, you were a legit baller. Hell, if you could average, I think, 17 a game back then, you were considered an all-star level player. Now you got guys coming off the bench for the most part that can average 17 and not considered all-stars. You know? But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.